Here are 5 reasons why I think that waiting to buy a house is a bad financial decision and is going to cost you a whole lot more in the long run. Let's dive in.
So we keep waiting on the world to change. We keep on waiting.
All right, so reason number 1 why waiting to buy a house is a really bad idea. There's this thing called appreciation. What does appreciation mean? It means that the value of an asset increases over time, aka the house that you're waiting to buy. Well, in the United States, the average historical appreciation over the last 60 plus years is 5.37%. Let's just do the math. Let's say that you're considering buying a $500,000 house. Using the historical average of 5.37% annualized appreciation, that $500,000 house, year 2 is now $526,000. Year 3, $553,000. Year 4, $580,000. Year 5, $607,000. So literally in a 5-year period, it's more than $100,000 what it started with. And if you go to 10 years, which is around the average time that most people own a home before moving on to their next home, the home's value would have increased by over $200,000. So, I mean, when you hear numbers like this, it's really obvious why these move-up buyers, these baby boomers that are selling their existing property to buy the next property, how they're able to come up with these huge down payments. It's not like they won the lotto. They've just been in real estate for several years and they're playing the appreciation game, which at the end of the day is why homeowners are over 40 times wealthier than renters. It's called equity. Do me a huge favor, tap the like button, make sure to subscribe. All right, reason number 2 that waiting to buy a house is a bad idea, amortization. Well, assuming that you get a traditional loan, your loan's gonna be fully amortized, probably on a 30-year fix. So there's 360 scheduled payments. And guess what? Each month, part of your payment goes to pay down what you owe on the property, further increasing your equity. So let's just stick with the $500,000 sales price. Let's say that you're buying a house at that amount, you put 5% down, which is close to what the average down payment is for most people. Most people aren't coming up with like half down. That's a bunch of crap. Most people are putting up to around 8% down payment is what the actual average is. So let's say that you're average and you're putting 5% down on that $500,000 home. And let's say the rate that you can get is 6.5%. And when you make your monthly payment, part of that payment pays down what you owe. So at 5%, you'd owe $475 to start off with. At the second year, you're down to $469. Year 3, $464. Year 4, $457, and so on. And by year 10, you only owe $400,000. Are you starting to pick up what I'm putting down here and why baby boomers and people that are existing homeowners buying their next house are able to afford so much and that have these massive down payments? It doesn't come out of thin air. Appreciation, amortization. Reason number 3, a lower property tax basis. Now, every state has their own rules on how property taxes work, but one thing that is consistent is that your property taxes are going to be determined off of your cost basis, aka how much did you pay for the house. So if you paid $500,000 for the house versus paying $600,000, your tax basis is $100,000 less. And since home prices keep going up, locking in your property tax basis is going to save you more over the long run. Speaking of home prices, that's reason number 4, because home prices continue to climb. Even though you would think that the world is ending and that a big meteor is about to hit planet Earth and that home prices should be going down the toilet. But the opposite is happening. Why? Well, here are some facts. 40% of people that own a home, they don't owe anything on the home. That sure makes it a lot easier to keep said home. And of the 60% that do have a mortgage, over 80% of them have an interest rate on a fixed rate below 4%. You can't even rent for what you owe on your mortgage. Talk about affordability. And to add to the appreciation narrative, homeowners have on average 60% of the value of their home is equity, meaning that they don't owe it. So homeowners are not in a weak position like they were in 2008 during the great financial crisis, where a bunch of people lost their houses because they had adjustable rate mortgages based off of loans that they really couldn't qualify for, and everybody was upside down on their home, meaning meaning no equity. We are literally the complete polar opposite of that scenario. Homeowners are very strong in their position. They're not going to be bailing out on their houses unless they are forced to. That said, supply demand. Expect home prices to continue to rise. Even with current interest rates, there's still huge demand for housing. And the last reason number 5, why I think that waiting to buy a house is a terrible decision is that when you buy a house and you're using a mortgage, especially a fixed rate mortgage, what you're doing as well is locking in your housing expense. Whereas rent is not locked in. Typically, your rents go up on average in the United States, on average 4% per year. Whereas if you've got a 30-year fixed mortgage, your payment is not going up. It's fixed for 30 years. And then at the end of the 30 years, you don't owe anything. And if you do the math of a 4% annual rent increase, it doesn't take many years before buying a house is significantly cheaper than renting a house. I mean, yeah, sure. It does cost you more per month typically to buy versus rent. But in the long run, when you factor in rent increases, when you factor in that you're locking in your housing payment, when you factor in that you're going to be 40 times more wealthier because you're going to get appreciation, you're going to pay your loan down through amortization, and you've locked in your property tax basis, a strong argument can be made, which is the one I'm making here, that waiting to buy a house is a terrible idea unless one thing exists. And that thing would be that you cannot afford to buy a house. Like if you're in dire financial straits, if you're concerned about the recession, you're concerned that your employer may lay you off, or maybe you're self-employed and you think your business is going to tank, then of course, buying a house would be a terrible idea right now. Buying anything is probably a bad idea if you're in that situation. But if you're financially sound and the reason that you're waiting to buy a house is that you're hoping that it'll be cheaper when rates come down, or you think that home prices are going to come down, I'm sorry, I love you, but you're not living in reality. The facts are that prices are going up, and the longer you wait, the more it's going to cost you. If you've got questions about a home purchase scenario, I'd love to answer them for you. Put them in the comments below or reach out to me directly. My link's below, and I'll get you all the information that you need to make an educated home buying decision. If you haven't already, do me a huge favor, tap the like button, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video.
So we keep waiting.